welcome back to another episode of Mama Thrive, and in this episode we're going to be talking about dropping expectations and replacing them with values. So what do we mean by that? So often when you're in conflict or you're having problems or debates with other people, what is sitting there for you on your side is often some expectations. Something sitting there that it's something that you had in mind. For example, I expected them to put on their shoes without a problem, or I expected them to go to sleep without it having to go to the toilet 60 times, or I expected it to be simpler than it is, or something else like you're telling yourself. I'll give you an example of a story that happened to me. So, a few months ago now, I went with my children to the local art shop, and we decided that we were going to top up all the art and craft supplies that were getting a bit low. And I gave both the children a basket, and I told them that they had $30 each to go find stuff and put it in the basket, things that looked interesting to them. And I had expectations about what they would be putting in their basket. And I had this sort of like picture of all these beautiful materials that we could create things with, and I definitely had expectations. And my daughter came back about 5 minutes later with one $30 item in her basket, which was a paint by numbers. And I had a lot of stories about paint by numbers and how it wasn't creativity and it wasn't art and all these things I was telling myself, and these expectations about what she would pick and what she wouldn't pick and what I thought of paint by numbers and all the rest of it. And we got into quite a conflict in the art shop about it, and I was sticking to my expectations and she was sticking to her desires, and we were in a bit of a stalemate. And at one point it dawned on me to let go of my expectations and replace them with my values. So I stepped back for a moment and saw my daughter and thought about my values. What was really important to me here in this moment? And in that particular situation, I had values that supporting my daughter's passions was super important to me, that trusting in her learning path and what she was choosing for herself was really important for me to be imparting in the family, and that supporting her choices was a really high value to me, and that our connection was more valuable to me than the paint by numbers issue. And so in that moment, I chose those values over the expectations I'd been holding, and the conflict dissolved where it ended. And I bought her the paint by numbers. And we went home and she got so excited about the paint by numbers, and she spent, I don't know, a couple of hours doing the paint by numbers, and she came downstairs and she told me about everything she loved about the paint by numbers, and when she'd made a mistake, how she just had to ad-lib herself and be creative, and all the things that she adored about it, and how she would love to have a girls' date with me and do a paint by numbers together. And I realised then that I'd been right, that my values held more importance to me than the expectations I had about what was going in our art and craft drawer. So I guess that story kind of illustrates everything I was going to say there.
Such a beautiful story.
So, I would encourage you to look at especially when you're in a conflict or some situation where you just feel like ripping your hair out, to step back and ask yourself, where are you holding expectations? What are your expectations? And then step back again and say, what are my values? Is there a value here that I could replace those expectations with that would feel truly good to me and would actually move us through this in a really empowered way?
Beautiful. I think Lisa has summed it up perfectly with that story. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you. See you next time.